Welcome to the Dyslexia is Our Superpower podcast with Gibby Booth Jasper, where we hear from fellow dyslexians looking at the positives dyslexia has to offer and the many ways to succeed as a person with dyslexia.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm Gibby Booth Jasper, and today I am talking with Rebecca Warner. Rebecca is co-founder of Decoding Dyslexia Virginia and the creator of the pqbd Dyslexia Awareness Symbol. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hey, thanks.
So I specifically wanted to talk to you because somebody sent me the link to your jewelry and I was fascinated by it. And I had never heard of it before and I was like, this is really cool. So can you kind of tell me the story of it and explain what it looks like for someone? I'm going to put the link below, but for someone who's listening to this, talk to me about it. Well,
it actually started out as a very personal piece that came, I always call it my darker days. When my son first started showing, his dyslexia started showing up, of course, it had been there forever. And as soon as I started learning about it, I started realizing that. But I truly understood it as, this is reading backwards, and this is just, I'll just get some flashcards and the school will figure it all out. And as I started not getting my needs met at the school and realizing that he's pretty severely dyslexic, that we were up against something, a bigger thing than I thought I could handle, I started learning more about dyslexia. And when I was designing that piece, I wanted to design from the place where when I didn't understand anything, because I think the general public basically, if you say, what's dyslexia, they're going to say, I think you're reading in a mirror or reading backwards, which my son did. So I kind of thought that's what it was. But he would flip all those letters and reading his, they still use his reading samples, I think, in the Department of Education for just this is what a dyslexic looks like on the written page. And so you had to figure out if it started with B or D or the Q. He'd do the whole thing. So I sat there one day with all these little circles with the letters P, Q, B, and D, and I came up with that symbol. And I wore it myself. I wore it to my IEP meetings. It was my little talisman. I've worked with other groups for communicating a message through art. And so that was my own personal thing. And as Decoding Dyslexia started to form, it started going in the hands of friends, and then parents were asking for it. So that's where it came from.
Awesome. And can you describe what it looks like for someone who obviously
can't see it at the moment? And I have a little video that I need to get up on my page, but it's the letters P, Q, B, and D. And if you think, they're balls and sticks to kids with dyslexia, like my kid at least, and they see them from every angle. So if you were to take all of those four letters and put them all together so that they all lined up with the stick in the center, that's where the symbol is. So pqbd. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it because if you look at it, I'll be completely honest, when I first saw it, I was like, wait, where are the P and the Q? I like
very stylized.
Yes. And so it's cool because you look at it and you see this circle and then you see these other circles. But then it's so much more than that, which I think is, I don't know if this was at all your intention but when I saw it, I was like, hey, this is really cool because it's sort of it's this one thing, but then it's also kind of much more many layers to it, which I think is very definitely connected to dyslexia.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was your intention at all.
It was. I mean, I feel like, I kind of hate the word dyslexia to begin with, even though I wanted it all through my IP. It's sort of the Greek way of saying you're really crappy at words, And so, and I also think art as a symbol is so much more powerful. I think that's going to be one of my big takeaways from our whole conversation is how we can tackle this in a multisensory way with art. And I feel like I kept going to these organizations with, you'd have the book and you're at this hotel and you're talking about dyslexia and all these different logos and symbols. And I was like, gosh, it'd be nice if we had one thing we could all get behind that was simple and clear, but also had kind of a message to it. And as the jewelry was going out, the symbol sort of unfolded with that. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, someone mentioned it the other day and I realized they're like, we don't even really have a color. And it was like, you're right. You look at all the different dyslexia symbols and the different organizations and, this one's red and that one's yellow and this one. And it's so true.
I think silver, I've done a lot of work with ribbons. I worked with the National AIDS Foundation. It's actually the first ribbon. And I worked with Child Abuse Prevention to move away from their ribbon. I worked with them as they established the pinwheel for child abuse. Mm-hmm. And so dyslexia is the silver ribbon. but I think everybody's kind of ribboned out, and like you see another ribbon, and I think there's already several silver ribbons. So, but silver is one, red has been one, but yeah, the pqbd doesn't really have a color. It can be any color. It's mostly that symbolism of those letters together.
Awesome. I love it. And as far as, have you been finding that the people are, excited to wear it and proud and sort of adopt it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great conversation starter. That's kind of how we talk about it. People see it and it's sort of Celtic or, what is that? And it's kind of a way to start having that conversation about, well, this represents dyslexia, but, it's kind of a myth buster, and you talk about the mirror imaging and all that. But we work with lots of schools and different organizations for them to raise money for one way to offer the jewelry, but also as that conversation starter piece. So it's kind of dual in that way. So.
That's awesome. I love that. So talk to me a little bit. You are a parent of a dyslexic as well as your husband's dyslexic.
Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about your experience raising a dyslexic kid?
Yeah. So, again, in hindsight, so many of the things that my son Fox was doing, I realize and recognize now as from his dyslexia. And I definitely... I see now the advantages more than the weaknesses. And I think one of my thrills is meeting parents who are in that kind of like, he's got what, trying to figure it out and being like, no, it's a really good thing. If we just work with them to get them through these grade school years, it's all going to be gravy. And it's scary in those early times when you're trying to understand what's going on, but it becomes exciting. And I always try to recognize when I talk to other parents where they are in their excitement or if they're angry or what's going on with that. But I kept reading all these books, and this is what's funny with my husband. I knew he was dyslexic too, but I just figured they'd fix that, And I'm reading all these books, and I'm going like, wait a minute, I'm looking across the room like, this is my son, but this is my husband. So it's funny how it's helped my marriage. It's like why we go to cocktail parties. He never introduced me to anybody. And I'm like, I just met all your colleagues. Or why he could picture the room where the couch was, and I would argue we needed to put the couch there. And he's like, it's going to look terrible. That 3D thinking thing. So it's been interesting how making myself more aware about what's going on with the brain has helped, I think, our whole dynamic for our family. So that's a neat thing.
That is neat. I love that. And so tell me a little bit more. Oftentimes people reach out to me, sort of the common kind of questions as far as like, what do I do to motivate my kid? Or like, how do I, if do I play the cheerleader role? When do I sort of be like, no, you have to do your homework? Like, what would be your kind of advice to someone who's kind of like, like, what do I do with all this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing as parents we can do to support them is when we understand the advantages they have and the things that that excite them, your engineering and art. And my kid loves math. I know math is that can sometimes be a challenge too. But the Legos, the robotics and those kind of things, if we can engage them with that. And I, kept telling him, and really his tutor who saved my life, she's telling him how smart he is. And like, this is showing him the things that are easy. When they start doing things that are easy, it gives them confidence in the areas that challenge them. So I think that's the best thing parents can do, is just to learn, what are the exciting advantages that they have too. Not that, and I know that thing is like, it's a gift. It's sometimes you're like, thanks, I didn't want to have this one, but it is exciting. And I've gotten beyond my own kids. It's interesting to see how dyslexia has played such a huge role and I don't even think people are aware of it yet, but in so many different fields of business or science or engineering. And that's when I do get excited about the famous people thing, even though that sometimes for every famous person, there's like hundreds of people in jail. So it's like, I do get some frustration there, but it is exciting to see a lot of the movers and shakers are dyslexic and in other countries, and looking at how other countries have looked at this. So.
Absolutely. Talk to me a little bit more about the work that you're doing with Decoding Dyslexia Virginia.
Yeah. So, the biggest thing I want to make clear with decoding dyslexia as a whole is it's a grassroots movement. And I feel like sometimes I was in a meeting at the Department of Education a few weeks ago, and just, gentle reminder, we don't have, now let me clarify, we have a chapter now in every state in America, as well as in Canada. We have some provinces, and I've been working with Japan, where I used to live, to get some chapters there. So it's spreading, and some people are moving in the nonprofit direction, but for the most part, especially here, like in Virginia, I can speak for, we don't have a building or a bank account or a president, it's just a concept and a movement, and people on the same page with what our goals are and what our mission is. And we try to keep our mission statement pretty tight, and what we're trying to do pretty much in the public schools, but also to raise awareness in the general public. So if we had someone in the Virginia Beach area did an on-air live interview with the head of the special education in the Department of Education, and kind of left him feeling like totally unprepared. And he kind of came to me like, "Why'd you do that to me?" And I'm like, "I didn't do that to you." This is just a group of, like I said, it's a movement. So that's the first thing to understand that. But there's a lot of power in that too. Mm-hmm. And I think what's given us power that maybe they didn't have decades ago is Facebook. And these, exactly what you're doing is that we can, with computers and the technology we've got, we can really get our message out quickly and efficiently. And that's a lot of power. And before, the pizza parties with a bunch of postcards, that's no fun. So here in Virginia, our big push at the end of the day is the legislation. As much as I can have my feel-good, chats and coffee with the principals and the teachers and the doctors and all that, if there's not some law kind of to back up some of this stuff, I feel like it falls flat. So we've been very focused in our legislative push, and we've gotten 3 important laws passed in the last several years. We're very bipartisan, reaching across the aisles. We've had feel-good moments in the General Assembly where everybody was on board with us. We've gotten teacher. Actually, this is, anybody could look at this. I recommend you look at it on the Virginia Department of Education website. There's a module that you can watch. It's about 30 minutes, get a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and watch it. And it gives you the definitions and the indicators, and very basic, but every teacher in Virginia has to watch that to get their license. And that was the first step, because in my IEP meetings, I'm talking just 2013 or 14, the word wasn't used, that everybody was misinformed. And so it's not like we have OG trained people working in the public schools, every public school, but at least people are like, "Oh, dyslexia. No, I know what you're talking about." The other big push we got the year after that in 2016 was a dyslexia advisor is now required in every district where they have a reading specialist. And that person is there to advise not just the parents, but the teachers on what accommodations are available in the state of Virginia to work with this group of kids and to help the teachers understand, because we don't have the trained teachers in place yet. And then last year, what we got at the higher education level in the curriculum is working with the reading specialists that are being trained in higher ed are going to start getting training in dyslexia. And that's really our big push now is we've got to train these teachers, because it's going to be working it from the back end all the time. That was a mouthful.
So maybe I should ask you this before, but talk to me about, as far as co-founding the organization, was it just seeing a giant need for it? How'd that happen?
So I think of the dyslexia awareness for me as like, both my parents are therapists, so my head is shrunken, and they talk about the life cycles of grief. And I felt like if first you're crying in your pillow, you're like, "What the heck?" And then I call it the epiphany, stage 2, where you're like, "Oh, dyslexia." And then the third bit is coffee, which is kind of where I'm stuck, where you're talking to everybody and you're so excited. And then the last stage is you're just pissed. You're just like, really? Like, once we've had this information, we know how to train people. It's evidence-based. it's not shocking. And we just need to simply do these things. And it's not so rough. I mean, yes, we need to make some changes, but we can address, 20% of the population differently, and everybody would benefit this way. And then you're back at crying on your pillow. So, and then you go back to, how do I make this happen? So I was in the coffee stage big time and was meeting with a woman together. We're trying to figure out our kids, and we're like, gosh, we need like a support group or something. And she said, I've heard about this new thing out of New Jersey. It's called Decoding Dyslexia. And I was like, wow, that's a mouthful. I don't even know if I can spell either of those words. But we started thinking of, should we join with that? Or should we start our own thing here in Richmond? And we decided, power in numbers. Let's and we kind of looked at what they were doing. She went up to DC and met some of the folks. In the very early stages, there was a group of us that went to New York City with Sally Shaywitz with Yale. And at the Catano Hotel, there was a conference. I would say there was about 20 some states on board, and I was representing Virginia. And you could just see the passion and the energy. I mean, and it's such a dynamic group of people. And I have met so many lifelong friends from this group, and no one's being paid to do this. No one's got a book or a building it's just surely like, we are going to move this stone for our kids. And so we came back to Virginia and found other women across the state. And there's about 7 or 8 of us that we call ourselves the co-founders, and we got it going. So by 2013, we had the Facebook page and the website, and now we've got chapters all across the state and thousands of people. And with the push of the button, we can say, everybody write a letter to this congressman, and it's done. So it's great.
Awesome. And so the focus is, I love that the stuff that you guys have already done as far as specifically the teachers have to watch a video that talks about dyslexia. I think that's so wonderful and so needed, because it's so sad hearing that people don't even know what it is, or as you talked about before, having a completely wrong idea. So is the focus sort of that kind of thing, and then are you guys doing
the focus. The legislation is always going to be a big focus for us, because we feel there's a power there with changing the laws. And we feel like that's a way for the parents. I really am in this now for the parents. Well, I'm in it for my grandkids, but for the parents who drank the Kool-Aid and think they have a kid who's not smart, it just breaks me up. And every other meeting or something, someone comes in, and it's usually an older parent, and they realize why their kid in high school could never do the combination lock, and why they carried this backpack that weighed 50 pounds because they were terrified to take anything out of their backpack because the organizational stuff. And they're just weeping. And it's like, oh my gosh, if something had been in place, a structure that would have helped that family understand, oh, you've got a dyslexic kid, like the left-handed desk. You just need to flip this over here like that. It's not the end of the world, but you need to, these things are going to help them out. Just what would have changed for that family. So
absolutely.
That's what keeps me going.
I totally understand that. I feel by that as well. So I'm curious, you've alluded to this a little bit, but it totally is heartbreaking hearing people refer to it dyslexia as a death sentence, as a negative.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's sort of in that sort of state of like, oh no, look, my kid is struggling. This is not a gift. This is not a good thing.
The first thing I say is they're not going to fail because they have you. The fact that you're sitting here and you're talking to me, and you've come to my support group meeting at the library on a Monday night, which to talk about phonemic awareness. I mean, good Lord, who wants to do that? And your kid's going to be great, and trying to kind of show them the light at the end of the tunnel, and to give them, Decoding Dyslexia is also a place for resources. We have people who will go with you at your IEP meeting. We'll talk with you on the phone. We'll plug you in with what you need. So to not feel so alone, because that was at the crying in your pillow phase, I felt really alone. I felt like, and I'd go into school and they'd say the weirdest things, like, well, if you just get them to do more chores, like, do you maybe pick up sticks around the yard? And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great way to learn to read. I remember writing back, because of course I would document everything and my emails back to them. But at least we'll have a beautiful yard, But so I think working with with parents to give them the confidence that they have so much power. I don't think parents realize in those IEP meetings, you hold all the cards, because all of these laws and everything, what are they for? They're for parents and families to educate our kids so they're going to do well in society. So when they speak, everybody kind of has to listen. So to know your rights, know what you have, know you don't have to sign that now. You have 10 days or 30 days or whatever the case may be. So we try to help them know what their rights are and know what they can do.
Awesome. And then we've definitely given bits of advice throughout the whole thing, but is there any other advice that you would give a dyslexic parent?
I think you kind of got to make this fun. And I know that sounds awful when you're in the crying the pillow phase, but there's so many funny moments that are things our kids do that you have to laugh because they're so brilliant on one level. But, and when I say make it fun, like, I think that's part of with the approach for art with me that was fun. I'm working on a comic book in Japan with a friend of mine who does manga. I like to use comics as a way to talk about it. Look at some of the jokes and comedians and things like that, but also just in your daily life, like how to engage with your kids in a way that I think that goes back to finding their strengths and advantages that make it interesting for them. Because it's kind of dry if you take such an analytical approach. But if you drop it down to what we're really trying to do is give our kids and to give people with dyslexia an easier go and to highlight their advantages. And I think once you do that, it becomes just wildly fascinating and fun. So that would be a piece of advice.
Awesome. I love that. Completely agree. So if someone listening to this and they're like, hey, totally want to get some of the jewelry, can you talk to me about how the different options and how someone would do that?
Well, we're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter with hashtag dyslexia pqbd, which is, I'm finding is sometimes hard to remember all those letters in that order, pqbd.org. But that kind of gives a little bit of a background history about the design and what we do. We also, Barbara Wilson has it at their conferences. It's going to be at the IDA conference coming up here in Connecticut, October 24th, I think is when that is. And strongly recommend anybody in the area if they could go there. Just such a great place to connect with folks. And we work with different schools around the country. Again, proceeds going back to the schools we work with, and just ways for them to engage with their community. But yeah, good old Facebook. I mean, if you just Google dyslexia symbol, if you can't remember PQBD, that's one way to do it. And it's just me and my mom doing this, so we're a small company. And I'm so open to, just about every day I'm sending pieces out as donations. We're trying to make this, again, fun. We have T-shirts and magnets, and I did get in a little bit of static with my bumper sticker, but it was, what does it say? I have it. Don't worry, my dyslexic kid will create a job for your honor roll kid. And I made that thinking about the politicians, because here in Virginia, they're throwing so much money at gifted and talented is what they call it here. And special ed was getting left in the dust. And I was like, man, if these kids are taken out of this wallowing, where they are, and they bring them up, like it's just a little tweak, and we'd have the CEOs and the head. But I never meant to pressure dyslexic kids, because you don't have to be the CEO or have to be doing that, but just that the potential is certainly there. So
that's great. So there's earrings, there's necklaces.
Yeah, there's my big hurdle is always things for my teenage boys. So I've got zipper pulls and keychains and leather, things on leather and all that. The T-shirts, magnets, any ideas people have. I get great comments from my customers. I think some of the best stories and, what keeps me going is the comments I get from people. I mean, they'll get a piece for a teacher, or they'll, especially teachers who don't get it. I love they here's a pendant, read about it. And just really heartwarming stuff from folks. So I always would love to hear back from people too. But yeah, I mean, we work with headpieces and things, and I've had a few like brides. I thought like I can just put a little dyslexia symbol behind all the pearls in your headpiece. So
I love it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Rebecca, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. Thank you.
I love what you're doing, and I think my little tag is apparently it does take a village, and it does. I think, and it's more fun if we all do this together. And I think that a lot has happened in the last 4 years with dyslexia. I look at where my IP meetings were, and when I go to ones now, what's being done. And I really think it's because of these kind of blogs and the kind of Facebook pages and the kind of people watching this. And it's exciting, and I'm excited to keep engaging. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
All right. So contest time. Rebecca has generously donated a pqbd pendant and a magnet. So for the first person who emails me at dyslexia@gmail.com. Again, one more time, all one word, dyslexia@gmail.com. That person will win the pendant. I will mail it anywhere in the world. So good luck and get to emailing.
Thanks for listening to the Dyslexia is Our Superpower podcast, and we'd love to hear from you with comments and questions, so please feel free to get in touch. You can email us at dyslexiaisoursuperpower@gmail.com. That's dyslexiaisoursuperpower, all one word, @gmail.com. And don't forget to spread the word by sharing us on social media.